Right then, welcome to Ryan's Road podcast number 8. We're on number 8. Right, I'm going to jump straight into it. We've got a slight return of the unprepared Ryan. Kind of, it's a bit fucked up. I'm going to get into it with you. Sticking with the whole being very real and honest, which is what I've done so far with this podcast series. I came in here about an hour ago. Started a podcast and fucking bailed on it. It's the first time that's happened to me with this so far. So we're on number 8. The first 7 podcasts, I've felt pretty effortless. Like I've had something on my head for the week, whether it being like talking about negative thoughts or whatnot. It didn't even matter with the first early podcast. It wasn't that bad. 10 minutes before, right, I've got time. Saturday evening, boom, sitting here, get it done. Now, this week I had something put me on a bit of a wonk. Maybe a bit wonky. And that's what I was trying to get across with my first attempt at this week's podcast. Because I want to say evolving, but at the same time not, or realising, or I think we could really say I'm 8 podcasts in. I'm just kind of getting to grips with what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, really being honest. I think if you've listened to all the podcasts so far, you've already got the idea that, you know, I think a lot, hence starting the podcast. One of the reasons. I'll quickly run through the story that's kind of half pushed this. And that it was the other day, the wife was talking to me because she wants to lose weight. And she was looking at something. And I said, I'm actually a little bit hurt that you feel like you've got to go elsewhere to, like, you know, figure out how to do this. And she looked at me, she went, oh, so what, are you doing like a weight loss program then? And I was like, well, no. I mean, she was right in what she said. I've not got a niche or direction I've chosen specifically to help people lose weight. But it is about helping people in the way they think about things. Now, it was that little example, and then I had another thing in the week where, if you look on my Facebook page, I got a post where it's entitled, You Don't Need a Gym. And that stemmed from, I'm sure you've all probably got like your own local town Facebook pages. So I'm from a town called Tamworth. So that we have Tamworth Matters page and people will put posts on there. And someone put a post about a gym that I wanted to start. So I put a comment saying, you don't need a gym. Like, fuck that. But then I put more in the comment than that. But then I went into even more depth on my page. And I just done like a whole bit thing, as we've already spoke on this podcast, about having your why. And like, that's what really matters, because you can have these negative thoughts always attacking you every day, sort of thing. Like, you know, the self-critic, the self-doubt and all that shit. And it's going to be there every day to try and like put you off your new routine or your new diet. But if you've got your strong why there to battle it, you know, we've gone through this. And, you know, the importance of that, of your reason, and that's what's going to help you get up when you're fatigued and you're tired or you're hungry from not eating as many calories or anything, and all that kind of crap. Like, you know, that's got to be strong in your mind so you can fight through it. And after I'd done that post, I showed the wife and I went, does that sound mental health to you? And she was like, no. I said, it sounds more about like your mindset, doesn't it? She was like, yeah. I was like, right, okay. And since starting the podcast, I've also had this thing with like the stigma that's behind the phrase mental health. And because I'm a self-employed tradesman, whenever I have a customer, if I can weasel in that I've got a podcast and a YouTube series, I do, because obviously I've got to, like, you know, advertise myself, so to speak. And then when I get that obvious question of, what's your podcast about? I'm like, well, it's like about mental health. Then I always scapegoat by saying, and psychology. Because I think I've known all along that my podcast isn't directly directed at mental health. I think I've been living a lie, in a way, right? Nothing I've said in my previous podcasts is wrong, and it's nothing of what I don't believe in. Like, I wouldn't do anything different about them previous podcasts, and I'm not actually going to be doing anything different going forward with the way I talk or what I talk about. Really, it's kind of the way I started to brand it, and I want to kind of put a nip it in the bud now before, it's 5 years later. Because it's more of the mindset, and it's more of helping people think differently, or maybe not helping them think differently, giving them a chance to think differently. Because I spoke to another one, like I say, this all happened this last week or so, and I spoke to my close friend who I do my workouts with in the mornings, and he's one of the main people that made me start doing a podcast, because I always talk with him and give him advice of stuff when he's had with his past relationship and things like that, and over the years. And it's just been a narrative between me and my friends where we'd get in a conversation, I'd do one of my typical kind of rant things, which would be like a mini podcast, basically. And he'd be like, oh man, you need to do a podcast. And I've got another close friend that hooked on it in my first couple podcasts, where I was constantly saying, because I was about to say it now, about how I'm not arrogant and I'm not trying to appease myself or sound the best. That's basically because I think what it really boils down to is that I started podcasting because I just like to talk about shit, but I specifically like to talk about how things are and how they're interesting, and a lot of it is about like how people think and whatnot, and why they think things and all that sort of stuff, which a byproduct of that helps with mental health. Because mental health is all in your head, and it's how you're thinking about it, isn't it? It's when you're thinking all the bad stuff and the negative stuff and you let it get to you, and then it affects your health. So I've not been lying, I've not been doing anything wrong. I think I've just been branding it a little bit wrong, kind of. Because I feel like that's why the whole time I've been saying, I think in the previous podcast when I said mental health isn't just for people that are severely depressed or like don't want to leave the house, is what I normally say. I think I've been saying that because I feel that's what people interpret as being mental health. If you're strictly diagnosed with anxiety, depression, you've got a mental diagnosis type thing. Whereas actually, I said it in the others when I started doing my intros. I've just said this is for people, it's for humans, because we all get stressed and we all deal with stuff, but we all have different outlooks and different thoughts and things like that. So I'm going to brand it a bit more loosely. I have started putting on my Instagram posts that if you can work on your mindset, everything else will follow. And I think I'm going to lean more on that, because that's the truth. That's what happens. If you can work on how you think about life, relationships, work, fitness, anything, if you can work on how you think about it, then that will then manifest itself physically within the world. So yeah, that's kind of it feels like a transformation, but at the same time, like I say, it's not, because it's still just going to be me talking. I'm just not going to worry about pinning myself to podcasts that have to be about negative thoughts, depression, anxiety, stuff like that. It's just going to be, because, not to backtrack a bit more, before doing this podcast series, I think I keep talking as if I'm like 3 years in and I'm letting you all down. I'm suddenly flipping it on you. What I naturally find is that each week or so, I tend to just have a theme in my head for that week of something that I've been pondering about. And that's when, aside from like people on the outside, like exterior input from other people, aside from that, when I've just been in my own head and thinking, I'd often think, this week I seem to be thinking about that theme more, and I'd say to myself, well, that would be a podcast. And like, yeah, maybe I should do a podcast series, because then like each week when I'm thinking these things, I can talk about it to someone. So yeah, I think that's going to be a bit more loosely what it's about. It's basically going to be about how I think about shit. And it's my own, is it lack of confidence? Am I too humble? I don't know. I struggle with that thing of just basically saying like, hey, this is a podcast about how I think about stuff. because it comes across too arrogant for me. Maybe I just need to fucking deal with that, don't I? So that's the new intro, kind of. So you all understand where I'm at and why I'm at it. And going with that, with Ryan's Road podcast, this week, a kind of theory I've been playing with. I say theory, mindset, perspective, is kind of going back to negative thoughts. And it's interesting because, like, one of the things I've been saying to my son, well, my 3 sons, they've been doing this thing where they run around the garden. Right, a relatively decent sized garden, enough for them to run around. And my middle son was just saying, like, I don't know if it was true or not, but my eldest was moaning that my middle son was saying he'd done like 12 laps of the garden, when actually he's done 10. So then my eldest was going, whinging about that. Well, he's saying he's done this many, and he's saying, like, he's not as fast as me and all this stuff. Anytime with my kids, if I can get a life lesson, I fucking slip it in there. So I couldn't just do a typical parent thing and be like, just ignore him and leave it at that. I had to explain to my 5-year-old about how, yes, you must ignore him, but then why? And it was because, obviously, I was saying to my son, like, look, he's not physically grabbing your leg and stopping you from running. I said, but you letting what him's saying affect you has now slowed you down, and you've stopped to talk to me about it, and he's still doing his laps. We do a star chart with my children, so if they fill up the star chart, they get a little reward. So in that moment, I'm there going, well, look, he's still running, which means he's going to get his laps in. And as long as they're trying, they get a star for, like, exercising. So I said, like, look, he's going to get his star. I went, but you're not now, because you're letting him affect you physically, but with his words. I was like, but you shouldn't let him do that to you. I was like, you should just keep running. It don't matter what he says. He's not actually grabbing your leg and dragging you down and stopping you. But mentally, look, he stopped you from running. I was like, just ignore him. So it's this whole thing, and it just made me really think about when people talk mean and how it, like, affects you. And a really interesting way, I think, about thinking about it is when you get horrible thoughts from yourself and from other people, you need to almost think of that as the same thing. Like, it's interesting to think of it, your own negative thoughts, in 2 different ways. Of it being, if you think about someone that doesn't like you, right? Try and think about everything and anything they could say that's nasty or horrible or malicious or whatever, and you'd think of them as being, the worst person in the world. Then it's interesting when you compare everything horrible they could say, because you're thinking about it. It's like your own brain says those things to you. You're kind of following. I've got it in my head. I'm just trying to articulate it better. I like to think of when you're trying to undertake something new, whether it's a diet or an exercise routine or a new job or a new hobby or anything, like a new skill, whatever, and you might be self-conscious and you might want to, like, not do it with people around or worried about what other people are going to say. It's like, actually, if you can get to grips, if you can sit there yourself and think of all the nasty things anyone else could say with your own head, and conceptualise that, and then take your own thoughts or your own negative ones and picture them as like a separate little person in your head, then you could kind of, what would be the word, like, develop your thick skin towards any negative shit that anyone else is going to say. It's like, so if anyone else comes along and says or looks at you, you could be like, mate, like, you having a laugh? Is that all you got? I've said worse than that to myself. Like, off you fuck. Do one. I've even said this before about myself. Like, naturally, I've thought, because I've been quite down some in the past, and I've had my dark days, and I just think, like, shit. It's like when you really think of your own brain and how it can really split and almost be like all these different people. And I think I've even said that before. Like, there's nothing anyone can say to me that I haven't said to myself from a malicious angle. I've said it all. I've battled with myself. And I'm sure a lot of other people have too. I just want people to kind of like play around with that idea about picturing it being like another person, because it's so interesting how I'm trying to stay away from like typical words like how powerful the mind can be and mind control, because I hate that with words where they almost have like it's like a stigma or like a meaning to them, but it loses the meaning. So you say mind control and straight away you think, that sounds like silly, like you're going to control people's minds. Like, but it's like, fuck's sake, man, because I want to use those words because that's what it is. It's like, you need to control your mind. I had it as recent as this morning because the wife was like really upset because she had a cake to do and she had to look after the kids, because all three of them, because they're off school again. And this is what I mean, like straight away, me just saying that to you, the listeners and the viewers, I bet you've got other aspects in your life where you're like, so is that it? But then there's going to be others of you that have got like one kid or something. You're like, oh god, yeah, I can't do it one. How does she do it with three? Anyway, it was really hard because I had to get out to work and whatnot. But I was saying to her, like, I say it was hard because basically I was trying to change her whole mindset and the way she thinks about everything in the space of like 10 minutes. Won't going to happen. But I had to try because she's my wife. And see, I'm just making noises. So in her head, it was this whole, I've got to do this cake and I've got the kids and it's just, I can't, like, it's like trying to do two full-time jobs. Make the cakes a full-time job and look after the kids a full-time job. I can't do it, it ain't fucking possible. And I'm like, oh god, I was like, if I could just take what I knew and just plonk it in her head, it should be alright. So I'm like, it's in your head. She's like, no, it's not in my head. And I'm like, I don't want to undermine it because then she just thinks I don't understand. But I'm like, I know completely what you're saying. And what I mean is like the way you're thinking about the reality is in your head, if that makes sense. Yeah. So the reality is there. She does have a cake to make and there are 3 children, but she's not going to fucking war where there's a whole bastard army in front of her of 200,000 people, all with sniper rifles and guns and cannons and machine guns and everything, and she's in a bottleneck, like she's at the back, the wall's behind her, and it's like tapered in, it's like there's literally no fucking way out. You know what I mean? You could try and picture the most impossible fucking situation where you're proper fucked no matter what way you go. Like, the army's there, she's on a bridge, it's rickety, bits of like old rope bridge, something off like Pirates of the Caribbean. Below her is bloody shark, crocodile, piranha infested waters. In the sky it's like thunder, lightning. Somehow there's fire in the sky, we'll go with that as well. All the sides of the cliffs are covered in like slippery algae, moss stuff, so can't go down, can't go sideways, can't go up, can't go forwards. It's like, yeah, you're fucked. Good luck. 3 children and some cakes is not that. Yes, it's fucking hard. But I said to her, like I've said at the end of most of my podcasts, I was like, don't be afraid of the day. Deal with it. Deal with the day. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I don't mean fucking deal with it, get on with it, bitch. No, that's not what I mean. I mean, just deal with it. Be like, right, there's the thing I've got to conquer. I'm just going to fucking do it. I'm not going to be happy the whole fucking time, but at the same time, I'm not going to be utterly depressed and let it fucking crush me. And it's in your fucking head, and I hate it, and I've only really grasped it more in these recent months, or to say year or so, when I've had my moments of complete darkness, and I can pull myself out of them within like 10 minutes. And it's so nuts because literally it could be a 10 minutes difference, and 1 minute I'm like, unconsolable. I can't fucking think of a way out because I'm stuck on that negative thought loop. The world's going to win. There's no point in doing anything. Any reason why? What's the point in even starting all this fucking shit? And then 10 minutes later, I can be like, right, I'm cool. I've got a plan. I'm going to do it this way. It's fine. And it's when you, I think when you do it, it's like anything, like with, I don't know, lifting. I always like lifting weights. It's a good thing to visualise. You think you can't lift a weight, but then you try and do it like a little one, and you see that you can, and you're like, oh, okay. It's like once you can know you can lift that little one, you can kind of keep doing that, and then you can try and go a bigger one. And that's the same thing with this mind control thing. Like I say, it sounds like bollocks, but it's not. Is if you can. Oh, have you ever seen like we'll say the Matrix? You know, come on, good old classic. Because obviously they're living in that whole. They're living in the Matrix. As far as they're aware, that's real, and it's real to them. But then when you get pulled out and you're in the real world, obviously you can see the parallels and the difference, sort of thing. So that's kind of like that. Like our thoughts are the Matrix. So the real world is there. Oh, is that the best way of going about it? Scrap the Matrix example. My mind was going somewhere with it. It fell apart. It's because I'm trying to help you visualise or conceptualise this whole thing of there being the reality of the things in front of you, but then the way you think about them isn't necessarily exactly how they are. Like, easy to use the example of my wife with the kids, because she's stressing, picturing the kids being at their worst for every minute for that whole day, like not sharing, arguing. By the way, I said to the kids before I left, because again the star chart thing, I said, boys, if I get home from work and Mommy is smiling, I'll give you 5 stars. We normally give out 1 at a time, so this was big. I was like, if I get home and Mommy's got a smile on her face, I'll give you 5 stars instantly. Boom. Done. So I wanted to get across the gravity. Keep your mum happy. Don't argue and be dicks. Like, let's look after Mum. Let's behave, shall we? And I come home from work and they got 5 stars. And I asked the missus, yeah, they've been good today. I thought, fucking hell. So the reality is she had the kids to look after and she had those cakes to do. But in her mind, it was so much worse than it could actually be. And this works in any fucking situation where you are. If it's a work one, a relationship place one, a diet one, a new fitness routine, anything. Like, fuck, the battle, the real battle is in your head. People think the battle's going to be like getting up early and like actually lifting the weights or actually doing the pull-ups or actually eating the good food. Yes, that's hard and it's difficult, but the real fucking battle's in your head, because it's going to be how you're thinking you're going to feel about eating the food, and how you're thinking you're going to feel about doing the pull-ups, and how you're thinking you're going to feel about getting up at that time. Like, actually doing it is never as bad as it fucking seems, is it? I'm pretty sure everyone and anyone listening to this or watching this has had some example in their life where they've worried about doing something, done it, and then went, actually, it wasn't that bad. That wasn't bad. That wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And it was actually alright. It's like, because your mind's a fucking prick. It's that guy that I mentioned earlier that says all the nasty, mean shit. You don't think it is because it's your mind. But it does. It don't fucking like you. I don't know why. I don't know why our minds are such cunts. Or can be, or have the potential to be. It's a whole other interesting thing. But it is. And we need to realise that. There's a thing that the wife used to say, it's like, that someone else told her. Is that you are not your thoughts. That's an interesting one, isn't it? Because that's basically what I'm saying. I'm saying whatever you're thinking about these things isn't how it actually is. So rather than seeing the reality, thinking of the reality, and then thinking about it, and then stopping the book, think again. get the other voice in there going, hang on, I'm going to reanalyse my perspective of this fucking reality. And I'm going to fucking manifest my better perspective into the bastard world. And it's so fucking, like, you can change your bastard life with it, because most people's problems are in their head. Naturally, I understand there's, like, you know, terminally ill people, and, you know, born with you know, problems and stuff. But the majority of people, even some of those people, like, they can still get by in life and have a happy life, but they'll be too worried mentally about the thing. I'm going to leave you with trying to think about that. I think with the whole new kind of mindset intro that I mentioned, you know what I mean? If you can work on your mindset, the rest will fucking come. Okay? Just don't take what you initially think of something as gospel. Just pause it a sec and rethink. So when you're worried about your day, or you're worried about a meeting, or you're worried about meeting someone new, or you're worried about starting that new project you wanted to do, or starting to learn this new language or this new skill, and your mind's going, we're going to have time, or it's going to be like this, or they're going to go that way, they ain't going to fucking turn up. Hang on, look, calm your fucking self, and let's just have a crack at it. Because you're probably going to find it's not as bad as you think. We've all heard that. It's not going to be as bad as you think. But this is what I meant by earlier when I said about things kind of, not when I said about mind control, and you hear that and you go, oh, that sounds funny and silly. Control people's minds. Again, that's saying, like, it's not as bad as you think. That feels like it's meant for little stuff. Like, oh, try this new fucking chocolate bar. No, I don't want to. Go on, look, promise you'll like it. Well, I actually like that, see? Told you it won't be as bad as you think. But the exact same fucking concept works for bastard life, everywhere, anything you're reluctant to do because your thoughts of being a twat. Just tell it to fuck off, man. Say, leave me the fuck alone. I'm fed up of your bullshit. I want to try it, okay? I want to try talking to that woman. I want to try talking to that bloke. I want to try talking to my boss about my job. I want to try and get up in the fucking morning. I know I probably won't, but I want to fucking try anyway. I want to try not eating so much shit. Just let me fucking do it, brain. Piss off. Have a go. See how you get on with it. You can email me at ryansroadpodcast@gmail.com. Check me out. I've had this email the whole bastard time and I just forgot. So yeah, anyone that's not following the Ryan's Road 22 on Facebook, or Ryans.road on Instagram, or any of the Ryan's Road YouTube channels, you can get me on ryansroad@gmail.com. Now, one thing that hasn't changed, that I'm still going to talk about, is how damn good physical fucking exercises for your mindset. And yes, byproductly, your mental health. Because it's your mindset, how you think about shit. My same wife that was in tears this morning about having the three kids and doing the cakes in the day, an hour ago now, was stood there in the kitchen smiling at me when I said I'd got halfway through a podcast and abandoned it because I felt lost and I didn't know what to do, what I was talking about. She was smiling at me, telling me it's okay. It's like, you just got to be confident. Giving me positive advice. Because she just done a fucking workout. Because the gyms are open and she's doing the online classes in the lounge. And I even said, look at you, being all positive fucking thinking, and she just smiled and went, oh no. That's because she's been exercising for the past few days. And she's loving it. I'm going to do my little list. Ready for the paper sound. That was perfect. A little whip of that. Importance of exercise. I've still got to find out chemical shit right at the top. Better mood. Anxiety control. Helps you sleep. develop skills. That's my favourite one. Reaching goals. Boost self-esteem. You concentrate better. Reduce depression and negative mood. Cognitive function is improved. Feel good hormones. Apparently serotonin and dopamine. I really like the reaching goals one. And I always bang on about this, don't I? And I like the example of the pull-ups. Because, as you know, I like to say, if you can do one pull-up, and you do that every day, and then by the end of the first week or second week, I'll probably say the first week, it should make sense, that you could do 2, you would feel good about that because you've improved on something. That's my favourite part of the exercise thing. Because if you're like, oh, I don't exercise and blah, blah. If you start exercising, it'll be hard, right? If you go for a run or jog, I've got a new spin bike, by the way. And it's hard, but then you keep doing it. And then by the end of that week, you find, oh, actually, that run that I started, I don't need to stop twice anymore. I only need to stop once. And then by the end of the second week, you're like, I could do that whole run without stopping now. You're going to be like, I feel fucking good about that. And do you know what happens when you feel good about shit? You feel good about the other shit. You just start appreciating the crap in your life that you didn't fucking appreciate before. Because we often do that, don't we? Like, you don't realise all the good shit you got. You don't realise that you have got the nice children and the happy wife or the happy husband. Maybe you've got a job you enjoy. You actually enjoy it. We don't notice that shit. It's always over fucking looked. But exercising helps you just see that shit better. It's just so much fucking better. If you want to get started in fitness type stuff, I've got a YouTube channel called Ryan's Road Fitness. I've got vlogs on there because, as you already know from my podcast, I like to document the journey. On my podcast, I'm talking, but at the same time, I'm documenting the podcast journey, aren't I? As we're going through, because I'm not hiding the faults or the problems that I've got. I'm talking to you about them as we go through. I could have easily dealt with this shit, any stuff I've had with the podcast on one side. I just spoke to my friends and dealt with it, and then just done like a nice, clean, better edited podcast and not told you anything about it. But you already know, if you've watched the series so far or listened to the series so far, you know I tell you when I fucked up, or I'm gonna fuck up even. Same with my fitness channel. I'm vlogging. I do a weekly vlog for my workouts. So I say I talk about why I'm doing it, what I'm doing it for, what I've done, what's worked, what isn't. And starting from this week, I actually vlog the workout as well. So I'm actually I'll just record a workout each week. I talk a bit about the workout during it. Can't talk too much because I've only got an hour window in the morning to get my workout in. But then I come and sit down with the camera in the gym, in my garden, at the end, and I summarise the week previous and what I've done, and I explain it all. So there's the journey side of it there, and I've also got some tutorials on how to start calisthenics or bodyweight training, which I'll briefly touch on. Because you can do it from home. You don't need to go to a gym if you're self-conscious and worried about people looking at you. You don't need to go to a gym if you can't afford gym prices. I will interject that I've got nothing against gyms. My wife will be going to a gym because she needs to get out the fucking house. I'm happy to work from home because I'm out at work all day. Okay? So for those of you that are listening to this going, well, some people like going to the gym because that's where they get their social side of things. It's a sociable place. They like to have a gym buddy or a gym friend. You know, nothing against that. But if you feel like you don't want to go because you're worried about people, you're self-conscious, I'm saying it's okay, you don't have to. If you're worried about affording it, that's another 40, 50 quid a month. Good, you don't have to. You can do it from home. And you don't have to do weights. Again, nothing against weights. If you do weights, all the power to you. But if anyone thinks they have to, you don't. You can do bodyweight training, calisthenics. You can do pull-ups, push-ups, dips, leg raises, all that sort of stuff. And you can do it all with a pull-up bar and a pair of gymnastics rings. And with those two pieces of equipment, that'll get you through all the progressions that you need to start doing a pull-up. So if you can't do a pull-up, there's progressions with gymnastics rings that will help you get to doing a pull-up. Same with push-ups, sit-ups, dips, the lot. progressions to get you doing those. And then when you can do a standard routine of pull-ups, push-ups, dips, leg raises, that's a nice maintain workout. That'll keep you maintained. That will be good for you. You'll feel good about it. Then if you want to push on and you want to start doing skill training, if you want to get doing a muscle up, if you want to get doing weighted pull-ups or weighted dips and really building, if you want to get really fitness about it, you can do that too. But I'd always recommend doing a little workout every day with like between 10 and 30 minutes cardio. And cardio can be fucking anything. Cardio is just getting your heart rate up so you can jog on the bastard spot. You don't have to have a treadmill or a runner or a spin bike. I've got a spin bike, but I got it for a steal off of Facebook Marketplace. It was nuts cheap. And for my fitness channel, you see, I've got this whole new thing where I'm trying to get ripped so I can gain the attention I need to get the traffic to my socials and to this podcast and the channel. So yes, we have Ryan's Road Fitness on YouTube with vlogs and tutorials. Ryan's Road 22 on Facebook, Ryan's.road on Instagram. I know this podcast's been a little bit different, but at the same time not. I don't think I've spoke any different to how I normally would about things. Like I say, it's just how I'm talking about what I'm talking about. It's how I'm describing what I'm talking about to people. Like I say, it's kind of how I'm branding it. So it's more about the mindset and just the shit I'm thinking about each week. And we're going to kind of go with it from that. Ultimately, it's if you like my voice or not, really, isn't it? Hey? If you like my voice, you're probably not too bothered what I'm actually saying. But if you don't like my voice, you won't be listening. So, I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to stop chewing your fucking ear. I'm going to tell you to not be afraid of the day and deal with the day. I'm also going to tell you not to be a dick to people. Try and live your life a bit better. Try and be that little bit better than you were the day before. Incrementally. If you want to get up earlier, get up a minute earlier. 1 minute. If you want to eat less shit, just have that one less biscuit. You know what I mean? Just try and improve on yesterday a little bit. Just a little bit. But try and do that every day. And accumulatively, your life will get better for it. Right, I'm actually going to go now. I'm going to leave you with that. I hope this podcast this week hasn't been too weird or wonderful. If you are listening or are watching, let me know. Fucking tell me. It'd be nice, even if it's just, that was a good listen, bro. Liked it this week, dude. Good to see you still doing it. Or, you're a twat, I don't know why I listen to you. You got a big nose. I don't care. It'd just be nice to know if you're listening or watching and how you feel about it. If I get feedback, I can know what I can adjust. If you like this week's podcast, Rob, but you're a bit too quiet. I'm going to stop there before I end up waffling again. Because I'm terrible. Right, yes. This has been Ryan's Road Podcast. I will speak to you next week. Whatever the fucking match is. I don't care. I'm going to fuck you all up now. Sorry. Yeah, that's tight. Sorry. La 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 la. I should have bought water in here with me. It was 8, wasn't it? Welcome to a show of excellence. Hair in my eye.